Hello everyone, happy Friday. Welcome to this first meeting of the year 2026. So what I'm going to focus on today is the Rave New Year, that is the 21st of January, and this is this imprinting energy for the whole year. And if you're watching this later on YouTube, welcome, you're right on time. Before I walk you through the energetic imprinting of this year, I would like to give just a brief general information on the Rave New Year for those who are new to human design or who have never participated in this Rave New Year forecast. So the human design New Year doesn't start at the 1st of January, but when the sun moves into the hexagram 41. It's the gate of hope, or as it is also called, the gate of decrease. So this brings the energy for starting new, because here the energy is at its lowest point, you can say. That's why it's also called the gate of decrease. So the energy is very low here, and from there it can only become more. So this is the hope that something new will start. And the sun moves here around 21st of January every year. Also on a genetic level, here you can see the genetic codon sun with the amino acids. It's combined here with the human design wheel. And what is so fascinating that the old Chinese I Ching, you can see the 64 hexagrams here. The 64 hexagrams correspond exactly with the mathematical structure of the genetic code. So what are these codons that you see here? These are codes for the creation of amino acids, which are proteins and therefore the building blocks of life. And interestingly, all beings on this planet share the same genetic code or the same coding structure, you can say. So up here is gate 41, methionine. It is also called a start codon. The building of any protein always starts with methionine, and it's here at the root center. And this brings the energy to start a new experience. And I would also mention for gate 41, for the methionine, it is not only the start codon, it also plays a crucial role in the body's detoxification and also DNA methylation. That means it's involved in how the body clears what is no longer needed, like the classic detoxing, and also how genetic information is regulated, like genes are switched on or switched off. So it's very important for that. So even on a biological level, the energy of gate 41 is not only about starting something new, but it's about the preparation of the system, clearing the space, setting the conditions for what can be expressed next or what will happen next. And another fascinating thing is that methionine is starting a sequence, a genetic sequence, but once the process is underway, so once a protein is built and formed, the methionine is removed again from this original genetic sequence. So that means that the very element that initiates everything is not part of the final protein sequence. So it opens the process and then steps out of the way again. We will see that later because gate 41 is very often in the neutrino weather this year. Why I mention that here. So the beginning of the thing is not meant to dominate the outcome. So what does the Rave New Year actually mean? It describes the collective program we are living in, the programming of this illusion, this shared illusion we are all living in. This happens through the yearly movement of the solar system, and these cycles shape how we perceive everything. So the Rave New Year is like structuring our experience of reality, you could say. So before we talk about 2026, I want to invite you for a moment to pause and look back into 2025. Last year, we had this Rave New Year chart. You can see this channel here it's called transitoriness in human design, or in 64 keys, we are calling it the channel of experience. It's this very emotional activation, the expression of the emotional wave. Progress, gate 35, based on going through crisis in gate 36 and mastering all those emotional experiences that come with it. And last year, when I prepared this Rave New Year forecast, I framed this as healing through change, transforming emotional crises into progress, redefining values, and overcoming the old. So when I look back, I would say that 2025 didn't heal by fixing things. It healed by making progress unavoidable. This making progress unavoidable matters because 2026 doesn't start from nothing. It starts from what we feel now and what's real now for every one of us, right? So when we are looking forward to 2026, I chose this image here in our left hand. We have the harvested grain of 2025. We harvested maybe some progress or at least experiences. And in the right hand, we have the seeds for 2026. So 2026 is asking us, which seeds are we willing to plant? Because, of course, if you're planting seeds for the future, you wouldn't take any seed. You would look carefully at them. You know, what's the promise? What are the best seeds? What do I want to harvest in 1 year? It's a year of planting seeds. So let's get into the analysis. When is the Rave New Year? We all experience this moment in the same moment, but our clocks show a different time at that moment. So here you have an overview of some time zones. Please orient yourself where you fit in if you want to do a Rave New Year chart for yourself. And one of the easiest ways to do this in the 64 Keys software is that you do a simple me transit here on the start page. And then you enter the date and time I just showed you. And then you can also see the influence of this cycle of this Rave New Year on your chart. And this is also the display form I'm working with now. So for my time zone, it's the 22nd of January in the night, 1:55. And what's also important, you only look at the right side of this chart, just the personality neutrinos. This Rave New Year doesn't have a body, therefore only the personality neutrinos. So you can see here, gate 41, hexagram 1, in the first line, in the first color, in the first tone, and also in the first base. That is the Rave New Year. And of course, if you look at this chart, we can see, first thing, we are looking at the definition, and we can see the channel 3740, the channel of community or sense of community. This channel has a lot to do with living and working together in a community with emotional and material bargains in the community. And this channel this year is created by the nodes, by the nodal oppositions here. You can see that. So what are the nodes? Let me show you just very briefly, very simplified. Here you see the moon and its orbit around the Earth. And where the moon's orbit intersects the path of the sun around the Earth from our perspective, of course, only. So where the intersection parts are, that's where the nodes are. So there are two crossing points. One crossing point is where the moon moves upward because this orbit is slightly tilted a few degrees from the path of the sun. So where it crosses above the orbit of the sun, this is called the north node. This is the node where are we developing into. And the other intersection point where the moon crosses below the sun, you could say, is called the south node. This is where we are starting from. So these 2 points form an axis, the nodal line or the nodal oppositions. And this year it looks like this. The moon is there, and also they form this channel. So it's a very powerful and focused influence. If you look at this in the human design wheel, you can see it here. The nodes, the south node here in gate 40, here in the ego center, the gate of determination, and here the gate 37, the north node, here in the emotional system, and also the moon is here. So the nodes are building the collective stage, you could say, for humanity. We are all looking at something. And this is the shared perspective we're standing in. So They show a kind of collective direction as a pathway we find ourselves moving along. And it has a lot to do with seeing things and what we are looking at and what comes close to us from our environment. So what does it mean? Because it's one of the most archetypal channels in human design. Because it is built by an opposition, and because it carries the core theme of how humans organize themselves. So socially, materially, emotionally, in every kind of way. How we are organizing the many, many, many people on Earth. So this channel is also part of the cross of planning, the epoch we are currently still living in, an era defined by agreement, exchange, responsibility, collective support, and bargains and deals. So this is the era we are still living in until 2027, because as most of you know, 2027 is this changing of the epochs. So 2026 is the last full year before this global shift in 2027, when the collective cross moves from the cross of planning with this channel to the cross of the sleeping phoenix with the 55-59 instead of the 37-40. So it's very interesting. Before we step into the next era, which is a huge turning point, this channel appears once again in the collective programming, on the collective stage, almost like a final review. And it's more important to remember that we have been living in the cross of planning with this channel for more than 400 years. So we know this frequency very well. And in many ways, we believe that this is who we are. We believe that this is who we are because we are born into families, every one of us. This is why this channel is such an archetypal channel. We grow up in tribal structures, like when we are going to school in our local communities and things like that, sports club, whatever. We work in groups. We pay taxes for our states and nations. We elect representatives of parties. We care for children and the elderly. Everything in our lives has been shaped by this community, by this logic of community, by work and bargains, exchange and mutual obligation, and being dependent on the support systems of our tribes. So bargains, politics, support systems, it's all about that. We can see it everywhere. And of course, it's all about money and resources. The resources of the family, of the tribes, of the nations, of larger treaties. It's all about bargains and money. So this is very self-evident. And this year, the collective stage brings us face to face to this very old question of humanity. How are we building our communities? How are we building our support systems? How have we been organizing our lives materially? Do our bargains still pay off for us? What do our deals, bargains, and agreements and deals actually mean to us now at the end of this cycle? So it's not about judging the past. It's about seeing it clearer, And Pluto in gate 41 here is the initiator of this new cycle. So it's already here. The cycle starts 2027 next year, but Pluto is already here, bringing a whole new program for humanity, a whole new background frequency. It's a great turning point, and we are entering the cross of the sleeping phoenix from next year on, and this will be our collective programming for the next 400 years. We do not only have Pluto here in gate 41, the gate of beginnings, but also the Sun, of course, in the Rave New Year, but also Mercury and Venus and Pluto, bringing this gate of hope and the starting energy. And Pluto will stay there for 2.5 years around until June 2028. So we will have this energy to start something new for a longer period. And so what is this energy doing with this channel 3740? So this combination of starting something new and seeing the old archetypal theme of humanity on the global stage, the bargains and deals, what we are going to see is that bargains are not ending, they will never end, but new bargains being prepared for the future, for a real new future after 2027, with the strong emphasis on gate 41. We are not yet in lived experience. We are in a kind of pre-experience. As I mentioned at the beginning, the methionine is starting something new and it's later removed. We are in this stage of initiation. The actual experience can be very different because gate 41 is here at the beginning of this experiential sensing circuit. And it starts here with the hope of a new experience. Then you're experiencing this in the solar plex, maybe a crisis because the experience was different than you expected, until you have a progress and let go of this experience again. So it's full of the ups and downs of life, of unexpected things, of change. 41 is just the pressure and the hope to begin something new. The gate of fantasy and imagination, of emotional expectation. This could be something. Let's try it. So it's not the experience itself. It's the seed of experience. This year, we might see the emotional drafting phase of future agreements. This beginning is not meant to dominate the outcome. It creates the conditions and then it disappears. It's setting the stage. It's like we are giving birth to something new and now we are planting the seeds. So we can only choose the seed. We cannot imagine the outcome yet. So let's look at what this means that the nodes and the moon come together here. So when the nodes and the moon converge gate-wise, this puts an extra focus on one theme of the opposition. And here you can see it's the gate 37 here, the gate of loyalty in the north node. That means this is the direction we are moving into, from the gate of determination into the gate 37 of loyalty. And the moon gives that a push or a pull, you could say, an extra focus. So gate 40 is the energy to break free from obligations of the community by being alone. So gate 40 is also the gate of work. It creates the material dependence towards the tribe, working for the tribe in order to get support. And there's the fourth line, organizing, to organize for the purpose of liberation. So here, this gate of determination says, this deal, this bargain, my work is no longer paying off. I'm not getting back. My expectations are not fulfilled. I'm not getting enough support. And therefore, I'm organizing to liberate myself of this obligation. So it doesn't mean that this gate is antisocial or something. Not at all. It's really the ability to work and provide for the tribe. But of course, there is this energy to question the deal from time to time. This strong material interdependence from the family, from the tribe. If you're committing to work for a tribe, you are dependent. That works as long as the bargain is alive and as long as it pays off. But there is this willingness to withdraw. Withdrawal here isn't escaping. It's the first step for renegotiation of the deals. Does this mean that communities will be further dissolving? Yes. Maybe some of the agreements will probably dissolve. Some of our agreements and deals will be renegotiated, and some are going to be drafted for the future. And the moon here in gate 37 emphasizes the other part, or this is where the direction is pointing towards, the other part of this channel, the gate 37, the gate of loyalty. And the gate of loyalty is the warmth, the bonding energy in the tribe, the sense of belonging, this positive feeling. And this is the emotional fuel for gate 40 in order to work. But it's never free of expectations. So this year, many people will feel where the warmth and the loyalty and the devotion in the tribes and communal structures are missing. And we'll start looking for leaders and communities where that devotion, where that loyalty, where that warmth is real. The fourth line, the gate of example, leadership through exemplary behavior. We will look out and see those leaders on the collective stage. And that is emphasized by the moon in gate 37 in the fifth line. The fifth line is the gate of love or hate. And in this sense, the love, the natural devotion to the community. So we will start from reassessing the deals and then looking for loyalty, for warmth, for real leadership in the tribe. And don't forget, this is not about true love here. It's emotional bonding energy. And this can feel warm, but of course it's never free of obligations. It's always about exchanging and bargains and deals. We talked about this dependency in the tribe versus love in the tribe, because this year is a year for clearing up over dependency within the tribe, within your family, within your working group, wherever you feel you belong to. It's not about rejecting community, but becoming more honest about the exchanges we are part of, clearing the material interest to see where do we still feel friendship and warmth. Because without friendship and natural devotion and warmth, it's just about the money. And this becomes very tiring in the long run. So you can do that for a short time. We all have, worked for money for a shorter time. But you cannot do that for a longer time. It's exhausting. So on an emotional level. So it's about discerning whether we are willing to continue certain agreements or whether it's time to withdraw from bargains that no longer allow us to serve in our own integrity. And at the same time, we see something else very clearly, because there is a longing for future emotional belonging with this gate 41. There is this hope, this desire to have a future belonging. People will be pulled towards ideas of future community, future family, future safety. But with gate 41, emphasized, this feeling comes before the structure. So this belonging is anticipated and hoped for, but not yet secured. So the payoff of our future bondings and future treaties and agreements is imagined, but not yet delivered. So 2026 is a year of pre-negotiation for future bonds, clearing, detoxing dependencies. Methionine is so good for detoxing the body, making space for something new. So it's a very good year to clear yourself from dependencies you don't want to carry into the future, into the next epoch. Feeling into possible belongings in the future and imagining new forms of exchange. Let's talk about takeaways from this analysis. So takeaway 1 this year isn't about whether agreements work. It's about future bargains we are emotionally willing to imagine. Because 2027 moves us away from these collective support systems, communal support systems, and dependencies into individual responsibility. And this year also asks something very personal. Who do you see as an example in your community? Who do we recognize as the leaders in our communities? And if you feel called, this can also be the year to be that example. If you carry responsibility in your family, in your friendships, in your work groups, organizations, this year invites you to live what you stand for. Not in expectation of a harvest, not to be seen or rewarded, but as a commitment to yourself in a sense of, this is what I want to carry into the future. This is the way I want to deal with community. Because it's simply much more nourishing and fun to be in a loving connection with our environment than to stay bound in toxic patterns of dependence. You know, we all know how frustrating it is and how difficult family life can be. So for many people this year may quietly mean detoxing from friendships, work groups, family dynamics, not in a drama sense, but in a sense of honesty, integrity, saying no to what poisons connection, selecting the right seeds instead. This is a very powerful thing, just selecting the right seeds for the future and staying with them. You don't need to push or control the growth. You only need to be selective about what you place in this soil. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the other activations this year, starting with Mars. Mars, the boisterous creativity, is in gate 60. We all know gate 60 very well because Pluto was in gate 60 the last years, the realism. And of course, this gate brings the potential impulses for innovation. But gate 60 here down in the root center, the gate of realism, is the origin of the individual energy here that shapes this entire knowing circuit here. The entire pulse-like frequency of the knowing, the individual melancholy. It's the gate of accepting limitations. So with Pluto, that was in gate 60, the last 3 years, we had this having to accept the limitations, especially of the pandemic and everything that came with that. And so we know this very well. And this year, Mars is in this gate. There are things in our world that we cannot change. So what is old and what is stable and with what needs to be limited, this is in gate 60. It serves as a boundary and a structure, and it says this cannot be changed. So in the light quality of this Mars is the self-interest to deal with limitations quite naturally and at the same time maintain the identity and security. So basically you are accepting limitations. And in the shadow, and this year it's triggered to the detriment, to the shadow, the energy of the self-interested ego ignores those limitations and has to accept the consequences. So we are going to see boisterousness of self-interested egos that are ignoring limitations. And the question here is the consequences. So that is the central questions. Are there going to be consequences or not? So if you find yourself in this energy this year where you don't want to accept limitations, no, there might be consequences later on. Moving on to Jupiter, the planet for fortunate expansion. It is in gate 53, also here down in the root center. And it's interesting because this is associated to gate 41. They share the same circuitry, but here, gate 53 doesn't push or initiate a new experiential cycle, but rather it initiates to have the energy for a new cycle. So it's the energy pathway that is moving up here. It's an energy stream. And what you can see here is that pressure is building up here to start something new. And the shadow here, the pressure to begin new things is so strong that dropping something recently started will result in unpleasant or embarrassing situations. This is the danger here, that we are starting something new and later we have to drop it because it was too early or the energy wasn't enough. So again, selecting the seeds for future experience is very important this year. And Saturn brings discipline, not by offering solutions, but by confronting us with limits. And this year, Saturn moves through gate 36, the gate of crisis and also compassion, and through line 6, the line of justice. So this line carries the awareness that crisis cannot be avoided. And Saturn activates the shadow side of that, the sorrow and sometimes the cynicism that comes from realizing that nothing we can do can prevent certain crises from happening. This stands in clear contrast to the hope and expectations and desires carried by gate 41 and also 53. Saturn acts like a counterweight here. It teaches us that development not always comes from imagining a better future, but also from staying correct here, maintaining a correct attitude in times of crisis. When things cannot be changed, we still have to maintain a correct attitude. It makes no sense, to lose yourself in cynicism and sorrow. There are a lot of things happening on our planet that are not pleasant at the moment, really. The least we can do is maintaining a correct attitude, especially if we are not in such dark situations. And this is the discipline that Saturn asks from us. It's not about emotional suppression. It's the willingness to be present, the gate of compassion here, to be affected, touched, and to maintain our integrity. And Uranus, the planet of renewal and innovation, is in gate 8. And gate 8, here Uranus renews how individuality, here it's at the throat center, here the individual creative expression, opposite the gate 1, the gate of individual creativity, that is here expressed. So gate 8, Uranus here, renews how individuality is expressed and recognized. And Uranus just came from up here, gate 23, the individual mental expression, the expression of insights, where innovation showed up the last years as the renewal, how people express themselves. And this was exactly the time when the artificial intelligence emerged and everyone started to chat with ChatGPT and new ways of expressing ourselves, communicating, expressing us better, and new ways of, communication came up. So we are living since then. We are living in the early stages of what many call the age of AI. It's very interesting to see that in the neutrino weather. And regardless of how you feel about it, we can already see a massive amplification of individual creative expression or individual creative potential here with Uranus in how people express themselves in many languages. I mean, it's much easier for me to prepare those presentations in English because it's not my native mother language. So it's much easier. So I can express myself better. And many people have the same thing. And how people publish, create, place their work in the world. So Uranus in gate 8 doesn't replace creativity. It reshapes the field in which creativity becomes visible here with gate 8. So the light quality here is creative expression as a contribution that others can recognize. In the shadow, it's experienced as competition and the need to be the best. So we can also observe that the AI companies, who is the best here? It's a competition. Of course, it's there too. But the question shouldn't be who is the best, but who is offering something that genuinely contributes. And it should be here to contribute to, human expression. So this is what Uranus is bringing. And the last one here, Neptune, the whale. And it's in gate 25, the gate of innocence, universal unconditional love. So, and the danger here with gate 25 and Neptune is that we are losing ourselves in projections, what could be, instead of seeing what is real. So gate 25 is also the gate of naivety, being naive and innocent, and Neptune, even gives us, even contributes to that, bringing us a veil, not being able to see what is real. So romantic projections, veils and illusions. So it's important this year that we focus on what is rather than what could be. Yeah. And also Neptune asks our trust. So sometimes the best thing you can do is trusting that things are going to be healed. Trusting the healing process in gate 25. Why healing? Because it's part of the cross of healing, and also it's the gate of, when we are shocked by gate 51, something is hurting us, we always have the opportunity to go back into the healed, innocent state again after some time, when we are accepting our wounds, when we leaving us some space and time to heal. So this potential is always there. And sometimes if you cannot see the healing, because it's veiled, you can trust that it's going to show up sooner or later. So takeaway 3, 2026 doesn't ask you to decide everything yet. It does ask you to notice why you say yes. Is it hope? Is it fear? Is it loyalty? Or is it true inner alignment? Not every invitation is meant to be accepted. So 2026 doesn't ask us to know the future, but only to choose what we are willing to grow into. So I would like to change to the 64 Keys software to look into the transit timeline, what comes after the Rave New Year, to give a little bit of an outlook. So what I did here is I opened the Rave New Year and I made a transit for the exact same day. And when we scroll down to the 64 Keys transit timeline, I opened this here for 6 months. So we can see here is the 21st of January and it goes until July. So what can we see here? We can see that Pluto is going to stay in gate 41 for the whole year, moving into gate 41, 3 and 4, and stays very long here in the gate 41, 4. So this energy of initiating a new cycle, this stays. And Neptune stays quite some time until May in gate 25, asking us to heal, to lift the veil. And then interesting change of gates from gate 25 to gate 17, the gate of opinions and foresight into the future. Logical foresight, you could say. So forming opinions that lead into a future. So on one hand, yes, some logic gates, they have been missing. we didn't see logic gates for a very long time. But of course, Neptune in a logic gate is bringing us again this veil for the logic opinion. So we will see some interesting opinions in the collective field with a certain kind of foresight. And we will have to be trusting that they are going to lead somewhere, but might be unclear what their value is because it's Neptune. Neptune in a logic gate is always not what you expect from logic, like veiled and twisted and illusions about logic. We had that when Neptune was in gate 63, all the fake news started. But this serves the future. So in the best case, you will see the energy for drafting concepts for the future that lead into, post 2027. So when we look at Uranus in gate 8, it moves forward and will change into gate 20 from the gate of individual expression into the gate of the now, expressing the power in the now. It is changing there on 28th of April. So this is what I meant with that these energies are picking up speed and gaining momentum, because gate 20, this is the expression of power in the now. So I assume that We will see people expressing things, expressing their power in the now. And it moves rather quickly here through gate 20. The interesting thing is Saturn in gate 36, as I said, and already on 27th of January, it moves into gate 25, the gate of healing, what we have been talking about. And very fast forward, also after gate 25 into gate 17. So also here we will see the structured and disciplined energy to draft concepts for the future. This is the Saturn energy here, leaving the gate of crisis, going into the healing and then future concepts, and later into the gate of control, where you're really exercising authority to gain control over things going on in the tribe. So this first half of year brings the potential for us to move out in a structured, disciplined approach out of the crisis, getting into a healing stage, forming concepts for the future, bringing that into a form. Saturn is really structuring, disciplining, wants to see it manifested in a way. And later, into the gate of authority. The first line of the gate of authority in the ego center is called warning, gaining respect in order to keep peace. The natural ego power that gains respect even without the use of force. And in the shadow is because of the lack of willpower, you have to force the respect. So interesting to watch. And the gate 21, in the second line, it's called intervention, powerful intervention in response to interference. So you can see that this energy will really be about gaining control in a way. Gaining control for the concepts you proposed. And the last line of gate 21 is also one of, you remember that if you have encountered it in your life, it's the line of chaos, the use of willpower that can lead to chaos. In the shadow, it's the withdrawal that is necessary if the use of willpower has led to disorder and chaos. So it's when you overexert control and you cannot manage it anymore, then you have chaos. So this is, you can sometimes see that in companies, for example. It's a perfect example. Someone who is displaying a lot of authority but loses the support of the tribe and then leaves chaos. This is something we often encounter in our consulting projects. Because gate 21 is also considered the CEO, the boss, the leader, gaining control of the material resources of the company. And the sixth line is a bit difficult. So that doesn't mean that everyone who has this gate is a chaotic leader, but you have to be aware of how you are using your willpower, not losing the support of your people, your community. And Jupiter, gate 53, then we have a short intervention of gate 39, the gate of provocation, troubleshooter. Maybe we will see someone who is bringing troubleshooter skills. And then again, the energy for starting something new that is later moving also into a logical gate. Welcome, gate 62. We will have the channel of 1762, the logic mental activation in the neutrino weather in May and June. So very interesting. We will see concepts for the future being made based on facts and figures. Yes. And let's look at the nodes. So of course they are in gate 3740 in the channel of community, and they will change to 55, 59, the opposition that is in the cross of the sleeping phoenix on May, 14th of May. And these nodes will show us that, when you leave a tribe, Next step is to reclaim individual responsibility. Find that freedom, individual freedom. I also like to call the gate 55 the gate of freedom. Individual freedom to be who you are, to bond with whoever you like. 59-6. Gate of union, the power of intimacy regardless of conditions, regardless of the tribal belongings. So that's a potential we are moving into. That we free ourselves from obligations in the tribe that we no longer want, and to get into individual responsibility and also individual freedom. My take on this Rave New Year. Let's see how it plays out. Thank you for being here. See you guys. It was an honor.
Thank you.